We're back, man. We're back here in Tribeca, the new home of Police Off the Cuff. I'm Mark DeMeo. My partner in law enforcement, sitting 2 seats away, Bill Cannon. What's up, Bill?
It's almost like Dave has his Coogan's uniform on.
Yeah, right?
Doesn't he?
Or Perkins.
Oh, is that
he either owns Coogan's or he works, he's the manager at Perkins. You ever go to Perkins in like Jersey and Connecticut?
Or is this just the Irish colors? You just can't get away from them, you know?
Plaid works. Never underestimate the power of plaid.
I had a great intro, man. I was going to say all
I
stuff like a
stepped on
New York City legend,
That's right.
proprietor of Coogan's, and he had to
Oh,
come
I
in with
like
a
Mark's
joke.
better. Go ahead, Mark.
Come in with a funny joke right off the bat. So that's how we're starting here. So anyway, you were telling a story about we were on the break. That's the problem you run into, because a lot of these stories on the break, they come out, and I'm like, shh, save it for the show, save it for the time. You're saying that having Coogan's in that centralized area over there was a great thing for neighborhood. What were you saying?
As far as the police department was concerned?
Yeah.
Well, I've always asserted that the reason so many of the commanders and upper echelon members of the New York City Police Department did time as police officers in northern Manhattan was because if they were able to maneuver those shark-filled waters of northern Manhattan, they have so many different interest groups, so many different contingencies that have to be...
you mentioned the Hasids.
Well, I don't know if they're Hasidic, but certainly Yeshiva University and ultra-Orthodox
Oh, yeah, you're
Jews,
right. I didn't
right?
mean Yeshiva
They
University.
have not only Yeshiva University, which...
Do they come in and get boozed up, too?
I wouldn't say they get boozed up, but we certainly get Yeshiva students.
They'll have lunch there.
I don't know if you know that Yeshiva was in the Division III national championships last year, and we televised those games.
I didn't know that, but that's great. That's great. Who's that competition? I mean, really?
Don't ask the difficult question. I don't know.
It's Division III.
Ever see on the airport, this is a great Jewish athletes, and there's like one guy on it.
Sandy Koufax, don't talk to me about it. So not only do you have Yeshiva University up there, but you also have a very, very large enclave of young Orthodox Jews on Bennett Avenue, just north of 181st Street there.
They work for the hospital, you think?
I really don't know. I think most of them are student scholars that are somehow connected to Yeshiva. You have African-American contingencies. You have Dominican contingencies, which is very, very powerful. But then also within the Latino group, you're now getting some more Ecuadorians, Hondurans, Mexicans. You have not only the whites who never left Inwood with urban flight, you have a huge influx of gentrifying whites moving in.
Annoying comics that want to live up there.
You know what's funny about that? You said the white flight with the white families that always stay. There's always white families that stay in these neighborhoods that change. You know, they start getting bad, and those neighborhoods. It's almost like you ever go into a Chinese restaurant? They can speak Spanish. One of those Cuban Asian places.
Sure.
And it
Chino
bugs,
Latino.
Yeah, Chino Latino. So you go in there and you're ordering Chinese food, but they also have another menu there with Spanish food too. But if you want to speak to the Spanish, you want to speak Spanish to the Chinese guy, he'll speak Spanish to you, and it bugs you out. You know what I'm saying? That's the same thing. What it's like when you talk to one of these white families or the white kids. From those families that didn't leave, they speak ghetto. Like they don't speak. You're not talking to like a white kid.
You know, if you
anymore.
went to the 3-4 squad, all the white guys spoke Spanish. It may have been little pidgin Spanish, but they spoke enough to get by. I was always impressed with that. You know.
Well, I can think of one Irish detective who never let on that he spoke Spanish.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about too.
And he would sit and. Perpetrators would talk to each other and get their stories straight, and he'd be writing away, pretending, because nobody would think that this guy was fluent in Spanish.
Oh, that's great.
I used to do that with lineups. There would be 5 cops that are fillers, but they're in regular clothes. And the perp would know that they were cops. He'd be like, those 2 fuckers are the ones who locked me up. Yeah, I stuck the gun, and they tell the whole story, and they were all cops. They were like, hey, thanks for the statement. Then he'd see them come back in their uniforms. He'd be like, oh, no.
So you're saying that the bosses that can navigate that that melting pot that's up there.
Well,
At
just
the-
recently, I mean, Nick Estavillo for many years was the commander of the 3-4. Eventually became
Yeah, I
chief
worked
of
with his
patrol.
his
Joe
son.
Esposito, who was chief of the department for so many years, he was commander of the 3-4 precinct. I mean, I think Gary McCarthy, who commanded the 3-3 precinct, then went on to be a deputy police commissioner. Then the
Chicago, yeah.
Newark, Chicago,
Baltimore.
You know,
Tell me about what it was like at Coogan's during the Washington Heights riots.
Wow, good question.
okay, so that was the 4th of July weekend.
We had Michael O'Keefe in here, by the way.
He's good friends with Mike.
Yes,
okay.
yeah. That was 4th of July weekend, 1992.
Two, yep.
92. Okay. So I believe I was off that weekend, and I saw
Good
it on
call.
saw it on the
Another
news.
one of those
Well,
Cape Cod escapees. huh?
No, I mean, I rushed in right away because we had to figure out what we were going to do with the situation.
Was Coogan's threatened at all?
Here's what happened. We got approached by a very, very reasonable Dominican leader, and he said, look, we won't be able... They were marching up St. Nicholas, so we did have that little barrier between us, right? And they were setting all the garbage cans on fire as they went up. And a very responsible Dominican leader said, listen, close up, don't stay open.
Right.
And we talked about it, and we said no, we should stay open. Then, as it turns out, as the shifts changed and stuff, and people were working up, they were bringing cops in from all over the city. I think they brought 4,000 cops
Yes,
into
yeah.
Washington
It
Heights.
was a war zone.
There was no place for them to eat.
Right.
So we were open. We sort of became a command center, and we kept things going. We had very, very good relationships with the Dominican leadership. And I know we were somewhat responsible for bringing together one of the Dominican leaders, Dominican community leaders. I'm
Yes.
going to say one of the leaders of the riots, one of the community leaders, and the commander of the 34th precinct at the time, Nick Estavillo. And I know we were able to give them a little spot where they could sit down, and they came up with something. But the next day the riots ended. But it was a very, very scary time. And
Was that the right decision to stay open, you think?
well, looking back on it now, we had no damage. We kept the trust both of the Dominican community and the police department. I think we served a purpose for both communities. And
That'll make for an interesting,
I got to tell you, I got to tell you, the Dominican leadership has grown so much over the years that I think all those relationships are much, much better now.
You run Coogan's like community policing. You know?
Actually, it'd be a Rashad. That would be a great premise for a movie. I mean, think about it. Like the movie would be called Coogan's, but you take it through a historical point, something where something major happens, and it's between gangs and cops, and the one place that all these the meeting takes place that's going to solve this, and where it gets heated and is the local place, that local pub, and the owner is the one probably getting people to come in and talk in some way.
Well, I one of my favorite quotes, the Baltimore Sun, for whatever reason, came and did a article on Coogan's, and they interviewed Guillermo Linares, who was a Dominican community leader at the time.
That's my name in Spanish.
Guillermo?
William.
There you go.
Right?
And he said that the reason Coogan's and the Dominicans got along so well is because Dave and Pete thought the Dominicans were only dark-skinned Irish. So,
That's great.
That's funny. You talk about that neighborhood, but that's where my parents met, and I'm half Dominican and half Czech. My mother's from Czechoslovakia, my father's Dominican. And Mark DeMeo is not even my name. My real name is Majobanex Sanchez. Can you say that? Have you ever met? You said.
Let's give him that Dominican test.
No,
he really
You
is.
said Guillermo pretty good. Majobanex.
okay,
That's
well,
He's
Majobanex.
not even going to try it. Let's move on, he said.
That's my real name, Majobanex Sanchez, and that's why I changed it, because that name sucks.
just difficult.
Difficult to
listen,
Well, Dave, one of the things, too, that's so interesting, and it goes with the whole theme of Everyone's Welcome at Coogan's, is that blues, salsa, and shamrocks race you have every year?
That was Peter Walsh's concept.
Tell us about that.
Okay, this
What's
is
it
great
called?
because I get to sing
Blues, salsa, and shamrocks.
Blues?
salsa, blues, and
Salsa,
shamrock.
blues, and
Salsa blues.
So that I like to speak about this because I had nothing to do with it, and I can praise Peter without seeming that I'm praising myself. So Peter had this idea to take the streets back, to show the people in Washington Heights that Washington Heights was a good community that was safe, secure, and all-inclusive.
What was going on during this time that he had a feeling like he had to do something like this?
Well, this was, I think, 1995 or 96 that he started it. So it was. We're still in the aftermath of this distrust between the Dominican community and the police department.
Mm-hmm.
So Peter started this race, and I wouldn't say begrudgingly I was involved in it, but I was not optimistic that this would be a big success. And I remember driving over the bridge, and as I'm approaching the bridge, because I live in New Jersey, as I'm approaching the bridge, I hear 1010 Winds say that the local entrance off the GW Bridge is closed for the Coogan, Salsa, Blues, and Shamrocks.
Oh, that's
Wow.
I thought, whoa, this is pretty good, right? So I continue on to Amsterdam Avenue, hook around, and when I get back into the area, I see they have this big thing of balloons all tied together at the finish line. I mean, this is very very professionally done. And I think
There's people running and stuff?
well, I mean, they're going to start off, and it was 169th Street north to Fort Tryon Park, turn around and come back. So the race was on Fort Washington. They had a permit for it, the whole bit and everything like that. Victor Mendoza from the 33rd Precinct was very helpful laying out the maps so we could get a permit. And this was an event. I think the first Sunday was 1,700 runners.
Wow.
So
These runners
this is
are
a
out
deal.
of their mind.
they
man.
get
They
a
get up
free shirt?
early.
So
I'm an alternate, by the way, for the New York City Marathon. You didn't know that, did you? Bill didn't even know. Yeah, I'm an alternate. What I do is every marathon I sit and I wait. You know, I carb up the whole year round, and then if somebody doesn't show up for the race, I throw my shorts on and I run out there. I fill in.
Just wave and then drop out of the race.
Nobody ever calls though.
So Peter also wanted the children of the neighborhood to be involved in this. So he had, after the adults ran the 5K, he had kiddie races.
That's great.
3
That's
and
brilliant.
4-year-olds, 5, and it was just terrific. And then it grew and grew. Then it became a sellout. I think the permit allows for 6,000 runners, and it capped out at 6,000 all the time.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
We ran it until about 2014. It was the Thursday before the race. I believe we gave the city of New York a $5,000 fee for their general fund or whatever. And the Thursday before the race, the city called and said, "Oh, listen, the rates have changed. This year it's $60,000."
Oh my God.
So it went from $5,000 to $60,000. We got Congressman Charlie Rangel involved in it. He called down. He said, "Listen, they call it a race." He says, "But this is a community event." So it was the police department who sets that fee, and they said, "Okay, this year they can do it for the fee of $5,000, but tell them next year to be prepared to spend the $60,000, which is not what we're into."
No.
So we gave it over to New York Roadrunners, and they renamed it.
What do they name it now?
Washington Heights 5K. I think Salsa, Blues, and Shamrocks, which represents so many of the different ethnic groups in Washington Heights, was a better name, but they chose to call it the Washington Heights 5K, and it still sells out every year. It's a dynamite day in Washington.
They charge them $60K though? $60,000?
Well, I do not know this for a fact, but I think New York Roadrunners has many fees that they have to pay, and then maybe it comes under an umbrella and gets reduced to something.
But I would imagine initially there probably wasn't the runner's fee to get involved in that probably was peanuts in the beginning, and now it's probably like maybe $25 for $30, or maybe you got to get people a bunch, 10, 20 people to donate for you to run and stuff like that. So
I'm
they're
not sure
raising
what
money.
the entrance fees are now. I think at the time.
If you think about the amount of cops and the overtime that's going to
It's
go
huge.
into it,
It's huge.
It's not even. I don't even know where the money goes. You can't even wipe your head with it because it's nothing compared to
Yes,
how much money you're going to spend that day.
Would that help
Definitely
your
true.
business a lot that day?
Well,
Oh, a little bit, right?
not really,
No?
because what we would do is we would have an open house and just invite people in, no charge.
Wow.
So this would be our St. Pat. It was always the originally it was the.
What do you mean no charge? No charge for what?
Okay, so originally the race was the Sunday before St. Patrick's Day, but then with the Armory, the indoor track and field center, they now have the National High School Championships the Sunday before St. Patrick's Day. So we had to move it to the first Sunday in March. So the race would be over. We would have an open house. You'd have free beverage, free food, right? Just come in. It was a celebratory.
I'm
thing.
coming that day. When is it again?
So since we gave it over to New York Roadrunners, we said, now what are we going to do, right? So it wouldn't benefit us to have a free thing. So what we did was we don't charge the charity, but we give it to a charity to run. So that they collect $25 at the door. You get 2 drinks, you get your food, and you have a good time afterwards.
still
And
a great
they
deal.
get a little
You're giving
fundraiser.
back to the community, right?
Still a
That's
They
great
get a
deal.
little fundraising
That's
opportunity
excellent.
out of it.
Yeah.
It's not a bad deal. So when is it again? So we can
Always the first Sunday in March.
first Sunday of March. So if you're a runner out there, or
It's already sold out this year.
oh really?
Yeah.
Damn it.
You weren't going to sign up anyway. Don't act like you were.
Well, like I said, I'm always included because I'm an alternate. I take my job very seriously, by the way. Like I said, I carb load the whole year, and I'm waiting by the phone.
How about the Armory now? That's an amazing thing. They have the National High School Track Championships there all
Well,
the time.
if you have not been in the Armory in the last 20 years, it is a completely the upper portion, the track portion,
Yes.
is a completely redone, world-class, state-of-the-art indoor track facility. It's just a
Yeah, I got to
terrific
check it out. I used to go there when I was a kid, I remember, because my uncles used to run track.
Ah,
They went to George Washington High School.
oh, very good. I didn't even
No,
think
John F. Kennedy High School.
So that brings us a lot of business in January and February, which is the height of the indoor
Track
season.
yeah.
So that's great.
It's just high school, not college.
No, they do colleges, they do opens, they do masters, they do a full gambit of the track and field world.
Yeah,
And
anything that has to do with that, because like you said, it's a
the
state of the
Milrose
art.
games, which used to be held in Madison Square Garden,
Yes.
is now held in the Armory.
That's great. That's great.
And probably the most famous individual race in the United States, maybe the world, is the one to make a mile. That's now
Yes.
run in the.
I love the track and field, especially now that they included the transgenders. I'd love to see those girls get their ass beat, man. I'm like, you go, dude. That's my man. There's nothing better than watching a guy beat a girl, man. Right? Isn't that great?
Well, you were saving that joke. I knew that.
I just thought of it. It's like so.
Hey, did Peter ever run that race, or he was just?
No, Peter was. Peter has run marathons, but he's never run that race because he was the main guy at that. I've run the race twice, the
No
5K.
kidding. Wow.
I've not gone over a 5K distance, but
No, that's good,
I've
man.
done the
I can't
5K
do
twice.
it. You got me beat.
Well, you lost a lot of weight in the last few years, right?
At one point I did. Now I'm putting it back the other way. Now I'm trying to go back down the other
Back
way.
then.
Yeah.
It's always a struggle, right?
It's a struggle. At 2
And,
o'clock.
and you don't drink, so you got to be eating a lot
At
of
2
Haagen-Dazs
o'clock in the
ice
morning, if
cream
you're
and shit,
hungry, I
right?
have good access to popping
You
food. in
work
the-
late too. You go to Coogan's late at night sometimes, right?
Sometimes I'm trying to cut back on that and try to.
I remember I
try
would
to
be
out
there
of
and
bed
I'd
by
see you
9 o'clock.
walk in at like 1 a.m. What the hell is he doing here?
Oh, that was a surprise.
What the hell are you doing? What the hell are you doing
Hey, what
there?
am I doing? And my wife's gonna see this. She's gonna go, "What were you doing there?"
I was on overtime, sweetheart. We made a
Oh,
call.
that was the time we grabbed America's Most Wanted. I was celebrating.
Yeah, how many dates have you used for that?
Do you ever jump behind the bar there?
I haven't in years.
No, I'm just saying jump behind the bar and make drinks.
10 bar. He's a
No, he was a bartender. Just
extraordinaire. Yeah.
no. I'm just saying it's got to
He
be
knows
like
how to pour that Guinness. What is it? It's supposed to take like 7 seconds or something.
Oh,
to
it
pour a
takes
Guinness?
longer than that, and there is a routine to it, and you can't be impatient for it because it does take, I'd say, about 2 minutes to pour.
No
it.
kidding.
Yeah,
You studied that in Dublin?
I did.
You did the Temple Bar area.
I did.
How can you well, if somebody orders it, you can't really give them 2 minutes. It's to sit there before when somebody.
If they know what to drink, how to drink Guinness, it's not doesn't flow like regular beer. You have to let it settle, then you add on to it, then you add on to it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I like a nice black and
beer.
brown.
Yeah.
Actually, when I was drinking, I did not like Guinness.
I didn't either. It's too heavy for me.
Too heavy.
No.
Well, you can only have
When I was
one,
in Ireland, I would drink Smithwick's.
It's nice and light. Yeah.
Yes, it's a lighter.
But they also have the black and brown, right? Which is
Black and tan.
black and tan. Yeah, that's the way I like them. With a big ass.
Yeah, I've been to Dublin a few times.
What are you shaking
I
your
almost
ass?
missed that joke.
Black and tan. Yeah, that's what you get up there, man.
Girl, you looks good. Won't you back now?
It must be great owning a bar, man. I can't
At one time, I think it was, we were talking before the podcast with Billy. In the old days, almost every Irish American restaurant in the city worked on the same formula. You broke even in the kitchen, you made it up at the bar. Mm-hmm. All those places are out of business. All of them. There is no place that can work on that.
Why is that? Because now you got to make money on the food too now.
You got to make money everywhere. You have to, because there's money going out the door every single hour. Mm-hmm. You know, butcher, baker, candlestick maker, everybody gets paid. The labor is not that anybody's getting rich working in restaurants, but it's very expensive to turn around and dole out,
What do you think, Dave, about the mandatory $15 minimum wage in the restaurant business?
Okay, so we have very few people who make minimum wage. They all make over that, except for a few kitchen positions, right? The waiters do very well. The bartenders.
Is that with the tips included, or is salary?
No, you have to prove that all your employees make a minimum in a combination of salary and tips, right, of at least $15 an hour.
Yeah, that's not a problem in that
a
business.
Dishwasher who works 50 hours, I think makes, let me see, quickly doing the math, I think he makes $800 a week, which would be $675 take home.
Mm-hmm. It's not bad. You need a dishwasher?
Where are you going to live near Coogan's? On
No,
600?
you can't do that. You got to share it. You got to bunk up.
Exactly. So, unfortunately, either that gets passed on to the customer, or you eliminate jobs or coordinate, blend jobs in together. It's just very, very difficult to make ends meet because there is not that huge overflow. Most restaurants work on about, I think the national average is about 6% of their total gross goes to profit. So if you're not paying attention, that 6% is gone. If 2% goes in cost of, if your cost of sales goes up 2%, if your labor goes up 2%, if your cost of occupancy goes up 2%, you're working your ass off and you're not making any money.
Nothing.
So,
you still live in Inwood?
No, I live in River Edge, New Jersey, which is about 8 miles over the George Washington Bridge. I always say it takes me 50 minutes to get to work and 12
You live
minutes
with, what's that? Is that the cop town over there? You live over there with Sylvester Stallone?
my next door neighbor.
You remember that movie? What was it called?
Copland.
Copland. Yeah,
Definitely they were talking about Pearl River.
The cops, yeah. The
Exactly.
cops liked you so
Pearl
much.
River, exactly.
The cops liked him so much they let him move in over there.
What do you think about restaurants going to the no-tip thing and just pay higher per hour wages? And they have to raise the prices commensurately.
A lot.
To cover that.
A lot.
There's a restaurant in Gramercy Park that does that.
Yes, I think a lot of restaurant workers don't like that.
Right.
Because they get blended in with other groups of workers and they think they do more of the personal contact.
You can
work
be a
than
really
them.
shitty waitress or waiter and still make the same amount of money.
And that's not fair either.
That's when you pool the money. When they pool the money, I know waitresses and waiters hate that when they pull the money because they know the shitheads that they work with, and that guy's not doing nothing over there. All he does is talk and go outside smoking cigarettes, and I'm filling up the coffee on his table. I'm giving the good hospitality. I should be making more tips. So nobody's really happy about that.
Total valid argument.
And then also, too, when you eliminate the tips, it's a culture here. I'm sure after a number of years, it would disappear, that sentiment, because you'd have a new breed of workers. Like in Europe, they don't really tip. But over here, it's a culture. Tipping is a culture, and it makes people move faster.
No doubt it does.
Yep.
If you tip well, or if they have an idea that they're going to get a good tip,
at least an incentive to work hard and give good service, and it also
Well,
makes
in this country, a bartender can be a pretty decent job. You can
be
make a
very
decent
decent.
wage.
Yeah.
In
Like-
Europe, I don't think they really make much money tending bar.
Well, in a lot of those places, they don't move that fast. They're going to make the same $20 an hour anyway.
Right.
So what am I running around for? You know, there's so many stories. The Russian waitress sitting there in Russia, like, you know, we're just smoking a cigarette while you're waving at her, and she's waving at your back. She'll get there when she gets there.
Right.
I like the tips. I like to know that if you work, you know, if you're good at your job and you don't mind being of service, that, you know, you get rewarded for it.
the number one reason anybody comes into a restaurant or bar like Coogan's is the hope that they're going to be recognized. And tipping is one way that people get to know you. And, you know, hey, Bill, how are you? Come on over here, you know. Mark, I got a spot in my section. You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, sure.
And if it all is blended in, I think a lot of that personal contact will be lost.
Yeah. It's I listen. I've worked for tips most of my life, and you know, it's
Department.
no. Well,
Yeah, he did. He did that
I worked as a doorman, and I worked in restaurants before that too. So we're talking about places where you're working on tips, and it's listen. You know, it truly matters when it, like, for example, you forgot something. Like, am I, fuck this guy. He gave me $25 for Christmas. Or you run out. Sir, you forgot this. And they, you know, they're on their way to the airport. That's their luggage. You know what I'm saying?
It makes a difference.
Yeah, it's a huge difference running down the block.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But and I'm giving an exaggerated point, but that's why I don't agree with that at all.
Hey, if you've ever worked for tips in your life, usually you're an over tipper. When you go to a restaurant, or, you know, you're a good tipper, I'll put it that way, right? Because you know what it's like to work for tips.
And I think you're right. You over tip when it's good service, and you tip well.
Yeah.
What's that?
And even when sometimes you get shitty service, you give them the 20% because you
Yeah.
just, it's not in you to
Exactly
punish them like that.
You have a set schedule that you said? Because you said to come in there, you roll in there pretty late. You like
I
that?
don't have a set schedule. We do a lot of catering, and a lot of my schedule depends on the catering schedule also. You know, the
Who
restaurant.
are you catering to? What
Hospital
schools,
stuff, right?
hospitals?
Hospital. We're on the health science campus of Columbia University, so that's a major client, Presbyterian Hospital. We do all sorts of catering events.
What's the specialties, like, on the menu? If you haven't been to Coogan's yet and you want to come in there, and what can you expect?
Well, a lot of people always like to say that we have one of the best burgers in the city, which I think
is a good burger. I'll
true.
say that.
But also, I love our shepherd's pie. I love our fish dishes. Our original chef used to work at the Seafarer, the Aegean, on 65th and 3rd Avenue, and he brought many of his skills and taught his underlings, who are now in charge.
Is that what you call the Mexicans over there, the underlings?
Mark.
Well, that's what they do. The chef comes in and he teaches the Mexicans how to cook the food. And then
Nobody
they
who's learning
disappear.
is ever an underling.
You
They're
know,
always moving up.
You know,
the chain.
Pete's Tavern was always like, got a reputation as sort of like a lot of Italian food in Pete's Tavern, and all the cooks were Chinese.
Yes.
I was like, people would never know that. They're like,
And Pete's also got hit a lot for having poor food. I never thought their food was poor at all. I thought it was quite fine.
yeah, well,
I'm not
look,
knocking it at all. Because let me tell you something. If you either see a Greek in the kitchen or you see a Mexican, either way, I'm happy. But all of a sudden, you start getting, after that, I start getting a little nervous. You know what I'm saying? I'm talking about, I grew up in New York at a diner. That's what you see.
Most of our cooks are Dominican.
Yeah. Okay.
And originally, we have them from Tanaris, we have them from Nagua, from
Different parts of
Santiago.
Dominican.
Yeah. But our head chef for many, many years, who has since passed away, he retired and then he passed away, Miguel de la Cruz, he was from Tanaris. And very, very proud Dominican from Tanaris.
now, how would someone go about getting a job at Coogan's? Is it sort of nepotism and they know somebody?
I'm going to tell you, I think 90% of all restaurant jobs are by opportunity. All of a sudden, you think you have a full staff, and you come in one day, and Susie's got a job doing a play off Broadway, and Harry's off to do this, and so-and-so has to go home to take care of a loved one, and all of a sudden, you're 3 short.
So what do you have, auditions and stuff for the girls? Is there a date? The girls can line up.
Do you know what year this is, Mark?
Oh, EEO is big in the restaurant business too, right?
Oh, it's huge, man. It's huge.
So it's not so much planned coming in. It's that opportunity. We need people.
So it's a revolving door. People in the restaurant business
Yeah.
come and they go and they
Yeah.
come and they go. So you're constantly hiring and
We're
firing
a
people too,
soft
right?
spot.
You
to
like
land.
firing people?
Does he like it?
I
No,
don't.
it's
I
just-
don't
it's-
like firing people, but sometimes it's necessary.
Is that your job to do?
Do you have a way to do it?
Not. I will tell you one story again about Peter. Peter sat down with one person and said, "Listen, this isn't working. It's not working. We can't be in the same place together." And she looked at him and she said, "Well, does that mean I'm leaving or you're leaving?"
That's great.
Well, actually, after that, we hired her back. We love her. She's great, but that was her question. She was a little confused with Peter's approach to firing somebody.
But how did you hire someone back that you fired?
Oh, we do it all the time. We do it all the time.
What do you mean? It's like a punishment? You're furloughed for a few weeks or what?
Kind of, sort of.
Yeah.
Kind of, sort of. And
Well, it's
then
like the way you get
opportunity
sus-
comes up and...
Sometimes you get suspended from a comedy club. You'll do something like you have a drunk night on stage, or yeah, it happens, man. And then all of a sudden they be like, "Dude, you're suspended." Like, I don't want to see you here for a couple of months. And then next thing you know, you're back.
Yeah.
Your sins have been forgotten.
I have been blessed in life. My personality does not remember bad things. It only remembers good things. So give me a little bit of time. I'm going to forget the bad things.
And the
remember
restaurant
good-
business is very like when it gets busy, it's so busy. It's so
20 seconds is an eternity.
it's adrenaline. You're nervous. You're trying to get everything done, and you get heated. And sometimes you'll get into a real argument. See people getting killed, dishwasher killing the cook in the back all the time. It happens, just in a flash second. You hear these stories throughout time.
Tempers flare in hot situations, as you guys must know from
Yes,
the police
absolutely.
department.
But I always remember
I think
in the
it's even
restaurant
worse
business.
in the restaurants. Especially like you get these guys that are sweating back there and they're fighting with the waitresses and they're playing little games with each other.
Yeah, that's true.
Holding on to their food or like putting it in a little bit wrong so the waitress gets. There's a lot of tension back there in the restaurant sometimes, and it gets heated, especially when it's busy. But then you forget when it slows down, and you almost like forget. The tide subsides.
How do you stop the chef from drinking on duty?
You got to hire the right guy. You gotta
That's
hire
always
the
a
right guy.
problem. That's a problem in the
Yeah,
restaurant business.
but you
right?
got to hire the right guy. You keep your eyes open for all new employees. They usually set the pattern within the first 30 days, right?
What do they say? A new a new broom always sweeps good, right?
Well, people don't go 30. If they have a drinking problem, they're not going to go 30
Oh,
days
yeah,
without
it's a
a
drinking
drink.
problem. Yeah.
Do you allow your employees to drink at Coogan's?
No, but they do.
How about, can they come in when they're not working?
No,
They're not allowed.
but they do.
Okay.
It's a very tough thing to enforce, but
Especially if somebody's been there for years.
I always tell people, it'll never, ever happen that I'm going to jump up the next day and say, "Oh, thank God Charlie was there at the bar."
Right.
You know?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, you mean they came in and was having a drink and bullshit?
It can only turn into, they can come in 100 times, and 100 times will be fine. 101, they're going to get in a fight with a customer over something silly,
Right.
and get me in the middle of it,
Yeah, I would imagine that's a good idea. But why would you want to be at work anyway? Who comes to work to hang out?
Well, I got to tell you, our staff at Coogan's is very much a family. A dysfunctional family, perhaps, but very much a family. So,
How are you with tabs? Like, can I run?
How long can I? How long
when
can?
I worked in Jimmy Days,
How
I
long can
was told-
Detective Pat run a tab?
when I was working in Jimmy Days, I was told what a tab means is that there's a cover charge the next time you come in. So if you have a tab for $50 behind the bar and you got $100 in your pocket, you say, "Should I go to this place or maybe let me go someplace new?" So tabs don't bring people in; it keeps people out.
Absolutely. And the other thing is, as a bartender, a cardinal rule is never lend money to a customer.
Correct.
Isn't that the truth?
Correct.
Because he'll never see him again, right?
You lose a customer.
Yeah.
But
And you'll lose
also-
your money too.
Also, another aspect of the modern bar and restaurant business is there are no tabs. Everything has to be settled at night.
Yes.
Everything has to be settled at night. Everything is computerized. back in the day, there was a lot of cash around. Jimmy Days didn't even do credit cards. When I worked in Jimmy Days, there weren't even credit cards accepted. It was all a cash thing, but that was not uncommon in the 80s. Now, we may go through days where there is no cash spent. It's all credit cards.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. You know, do you have your I don't want to call them drunks, but they're the regulars that are there all day, every day. You have that like a local pub? Because I remember I used to go to a bar when I was a kid, and we used to hit this guy. We used to hang out in the...
We don't have regular people who drink to excess. None of our regular. We have people who drink to excess, but they're not. Like
they come in every day. And they sit at the same part of the bar every day.
But they don't drink to excess, really. We certainly have people who come in who are not regular customers who may drink too much. Sometimes
you ever have to tell the doctor, say, "Doc, I think, don't you have surgery in a little while?" let me just take that one away. After the surgery, doctor, you come back. I'm going to hold it for you right here.
As a matter of fact, we only have one doctor who does not care about being seen at the bar. He only drinks Diet Coke or whatever it is. But if he comes in at lunch and it's busy, he'll sit at the bar, have his salad and a Coke. But other doctors, they don't want to sit at the bar because they may be misinterpreted as having.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Do they?
That's one of the greatest hospitals.
Do they come
in
in
the world,
with?
too.
Do they come in there with the robe on, or the doctor written on it?
Apparently, they're not supposed to, but they do. The scrubs, you mean?
Yeah, because you know, I mean, that's a good. We want to talk about picking up chicks, man. You come in there with a freaking doctor so and so.
He wears those out at night. He's still a doctor.
And I used to tell girls I play on the Jets. Now my friend Bobby used to do that. He used to tell me he was like 90. He used to make up some number. Yeah, I'm 58 on the Jets. So how you gonna know? The guy's 6'6". He looks like a football player. You can't see his face because it's in a helmet. You know, we're out.
I've never understood that about football players. They're the most unrecognizable people because the only time you see them, they have their helmets on.
Yeah, that's true.
A lot of them take it off like as soon as they can. They can't anymore, but they wanted to.
They can't take it off on the field. They get a fine. But once they get off the field.
Yeah, sometimes they'll take that fine if it's a really good play.
They want them to see their face.
So that's a good look because I know cops, man. Cops come in there and they can't wait for the girl to ask them, you know, what is it that you do? Because you ask them, what do you do? Feign interest for a little while. And then they're like, what do you do? And they're like, yeah, I'm a detective. Oh, my God, really? You're a detective?
Well, we had a regular customer who was in charge of dispatching the work crews for Time Warner Cable.
Uh-huh.
And he'd come in, sit down, let me see a menu. His name was, I won't use his name. He may still be with Time Warner. But people would come up and say, oh, I'm having a problem. Can you take care of this? Right? He goes, I'll send somebody over. What time do you need him? 4 o'clock? I'll get him over there at 4 o'clock. So he'd take care of that.
Yeah.
Right? So he was great. So some days he would be there'd be a line waiting to talk to him. And he was a very, very nice guy, right? Uh-huh. And at the end of one day, he turns to me and he goes, next time someone asks me what I do for a living, I'm going to tell them I'm a cop.
Yeah, but you know, the Dominicans, they talk. They'll be like, hey, you know, if you need a cable, the guy, he sits in there every day. You go talk to him. He'll fix it for you right away.
You got GHI and health insurance.
Well, yeah, that's a big thing with the, we always joked around about that, but the doctor thing has got to be, wow, that's a home run, man. I would wear that freaking thing with the Dr. Kildare thing there. Come in there, have my Coke by the bar. Oh, it's got to be like shooting ducks in a barrel, man.
That's for sure. Do you notice any difference in the cops of 2019, 2020 as compared to the cops from the 80s and 90s and 2000s?
Well, sure. The most obvious thing is in 1985, 86, 87, if 12 guys walked in, you could tell they were cops. Mm-hmm. They were 5'10" to 6 feet tall. They were 200 pounds. They were white. They were kind of Irish-American-y, mm-hmm. right? And now it's a much more diverse police department. Mm-hmm. I told Adriano Espaillat before he was involved in running for, he's been a state senator, he's been an assemblyman, but before he was elected to anything, I reminded him that, I was a sociology major in college, and I reminded him that the rise to power of the Irish in New York political circles came after they got badges and guns.
Is that true?
If the Dominicans want political power in New York, go out and get badges and guns. And now the Dominicans are a very large portion of the New York City.
Well,
I was one of the
Tammany
first
Hall
one.
was down by 14th Street.
Yes,
Irving
exactly
Place, right?
Yes.
I was one of the first, and I'm serious right now, I was one of the first Dominican cops on the NYPD. As a matter of fact, I didn't even get a nightstick. I got a plátano, a big one.
I knew there was a punchline to that because you're not one of the first.
I didn't even have the shiny shoes. They gave me chancletas. Yeah, man.
You speak any Spanish, Dave?
Very little. Little
figure you would have picked
basura
it up.
yellow. Yeah. I don't have a good ear for language. I struggled with language in school. I just don't have a good ear for it.
Yeah,
I wish I
it
did.
is in here because I can't do dialects. You know, save my life. It's not my forte. So if I ever do it in my act, it's always like in tiny spurts, 2 or 3 words. You get this, you get the laugh out of it, but so it's the same thing with language. It's like either have an ear for it or not. They try to get rid of my regional dialect. I spend money on a speech coach, and it just didn't work. She said, "Oh, you're not practicing enough." I said, "I practice every day when I'm at home, but I can't practice when I'm at work because I'm a cop. What am I going to do? Thou art under arrest. Come back here." You know, so
That's really hard to get rid of an accent. It really is.
Another thing that just popped into my mind, another thing that completely changed over all the years was many years ago, if there was an arrest made on the premises, that was a big, major deal. The state liquor authority was involved there, and that was stupid. It was stupid.
Sure.
If you need the police, you need the police, right? So that has eased up. I tell our staff, I said, if you ever feel yourself in danger, you hit 911.
Right, sure.
You know.
so what you're saying is that back in the day, if there was a situation in the bar, you were hesitant to call the cops because
Either hesitant
then they
to call
start
the cops
looking
or
into
the-
your liquor license and all this,
Exactly
trying to punish
right.
you,
Exactly right.
for reaching out for help, which is
Yes, and the other thing is that if you did have to call the police and they entered the place, you would have to hope that it was a reasonable enough guy who would write the episode that was happening outside the place.
Well, we had a bar on the corner of the 2-3 on 102nd Street, it was La Colina, and every night it was a bloodbath there. And for years they got away with it. And then when Comstat hit, they started nuisance abatement licensed premises. And
you
that's
didn't
what
get hit
happened
with
to
that,
them.
did you? That Bloomberg team of to me that was a sham. That was disgusting. Closing up all the nightclubs in the city. That team of we had a building, FDNY cops.
No.
You know what I'm talking about? The task force.
Yes, but it had an acronym. I can't remember what it was, but
Social Club Night Task Force. I think it was called.
I will tell you, not too long ago, within the last 2 years, one of the retired guys was in Coogan's, and we're talking, and he said, "Oh yeah," he says, "for a while," he says, "I had that task force that went around for underage drinking," and I said, "Well, we've never had a problem with that here." He goes, "Oh, we were here many times."
No kidding.
Never knew it. I never knew it. So apparently what their protocol is they go to the door. If the doorman asks them for ID, there is no, it's raining out. I left it in my car. It's 3 blocks away. They say, "No, I'm sorry, I don't have an ID. Sorry, you can't come in."
Right.
So it never got off base 1.
That's good.
It's good. You have to have a good guy at the door.
Yeah. And so many, I do tell the doorman, I said, "Why do you think these people are being so friendly to you and they want to know your name? So that you won't ask them for their ID,
report.
for their ID the next time, and they can give their ID to their buddy."
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So,
Wow, that's interesting.
right? I mean, if a guy comes in and says, "Hey, Charlie, how you doing?" It's very difficult to say, "Yeah, I'm doing great. Can I see your ID?" It's very difficult.
But you always had very good security
Yes.
at Coogan's,
Yes.
and that's important.
Because we hire people who've already proved that they can do it, and they're not interested in proving it again. They're adults.
Sure. Yep.
You know?
Yeah, that's a big difference
Yeah,
too. It's a
huge.
different type of place. I think that's the one thing that's coming across here. You know, it's more than a restaurant. It's more than a bar. It's this community center. It's a temporary command post if you're on overtime. You know what I'm saying? Need to be found. You get those calls, by the way?
Hey, is Cannon in at the bar?
Somebody's wife. How many between the two places, man? Which one was worse? Your place, because you got all the cops there. The cops' wives calling up. Is my husband there? You get those, or the other place that downtown?
Jimmy Days.
Jimmy Days, we did, yeah.
Nobody does that anymore, right? Not with the cell
Cell
phones.
phones, yeah. So that and We lost our great Thursday nights when you guys all went to that automatic pay thing.
Right, they used to. Used to even when I was on a job, guys used to go to the check cashing places to cash their check.
Yeah.
Detective Pat, I was like, "What are you doing? Why don't you go to direct deposit?" He goes, "I want to feel the knot." I go,
And we felt some of that knot.
Yeah, and then they would spend half the knot at Coogan's, right?
Yeah, man, there was a lot of explaining to do, man, when we went to
Thursday
direct
night
deposit.
used to be our biggest night of the week. We used to have back in the 80s and 90s, we had a great thing going. Everybody met at Coogan's at the bar from about 8 o'clock to like 11 o'clock, spent a good portion of their money, and then they all went up to Bakerfield in Inwood, which was on 215th Street, and 2 o'clock in the morning, Bakerfield would be
Rocking.
a madhouse. They'd be rolling in the streets out there.
Oh, wow.
And we'd have the money, they'd have the problems.
Hey, let me ask you a question. We talked a lot about the cops going in there and the hot girls. How many people do you think?
No, let's correct this, Mark. You talked about the cops and the hot girl. I'm a married man for 35 years.
How many couples do you think came out? How many people got married after they met?
A lot.
Now he's ready to take credit before that.
Yes, that's exactly right. So there has always been a thing for Irish American cops and Dominican girls, no doubt about it. And we have witnessed many people who have met at. In fact, I made
a lot of Carlos O'Malley's.
That works nicely.
Back in the day, they used to call them war brides. When the Heights was crazy. He met a war bride up in the Heights.
A lot of people met at Coogan's and went on to marry, start families.
Were you considering becoming a reverend so you could marry them? Or?
As a matter of fact, I had not, but you know what? That's not a bad idea. We actually have a neighborhood guy who's a judge who, on occasion, we've asked him to perform the ceremony, and he comes in and does it.
When we speak to Peter Walsh when he comes on the show, what will Peter Walsh say about you? Oh, that's like a Barbara Walters question.
No.
You're getting good, Bill.
I'll tell you, I think what Peter will say was, as I feel about him, it's pretty incredible that you can get two Irish-American guys from a sort of similar background, both a little on the volatile side, right, who can be partners all these years, and we've never had a fight.
That's fantastic.
We've never had a fight.
You must argue, though. You can't agree.
We have differences of opinions, but if I feel it's very important to him, I give in. If he feels it's very important to me, he'll give in.
Now we'll listen
to what Tess McDade
You're the
tells
meat
us.
thermometer guy. What is his role?
Peter does a lot of things at Coogan's that are seen in the front of the house and in the back of the house, but
would you say he's more of the personality?
Absolutely.
So you defer to
Peter
him,
has been blessed with a very, very bad memory of people's names, so he can go and greet everybody without feeling awkward about not knowing their names. Hey, how you doing?
You know, it's a gift to remember people's names.
That is a gift.
Which I'm not good at either. But I tell you one thing: there are people out there that they never ever forget your name. You tell it to them once, and they always
That's
remember.
A talent. That is
and let me tell you something about those people. They're freaking annoying because they never ever. Hey, Mark, how are you, Mark? Are you okay, Mark? They'll say it 1,000 times, and I'm like, I can't
There
remember.
is a class you can take in remembering people's names, and one of the things they do is to tell you to use the name once you hear it, to use it 3 times very rapidly.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah.
It's a little awkward in a conversation.
Well, there was a lady downtown, Asian lady. She had the little breakfast shop right across the street from the.
I know it's coming.
Right across the street from criminal court. So if you had a collar or you had to go to court, you go across the street, get your egg sandwich. And that my partner told me once, tell your name once, and she'll never forget it. And sure enough, I went in there. How could I help? What's your name? I said Mayo. And the next day, it was like 6 months later. Hey, Mayo, how are you? I couldn't believe it, man. Wow. There's people with a gift, and she wasn't annoying with it, by the way. She was good.
That is a gift.
But most people that do remember names, they're very annoying with it. They never let you forget.
I can remember what you drank.
Oh, really?
You know, if you're the
That's
Coors
a
Light guy, if
skill,
you're the if you're the Dewar's and Water guy.
Yeah, I get. Yeah, I'm right now I'm a Tito's with club soda, but I used to be a bourbon guy. I had to get off that. Now I'm getting it off altogether. 'Cause I had
Since
to stop.
yesterday.
Yeah, well, we're not,
Yesterday, yeah. It's
not
been
even a
12
day.
hours.
It's not even a day.
Now, Dave, you have kids?
I have 3 kids. Well, they're all adults now. Doyle, Thomas, and Kate.
I thought you were going to say Jose, Maria, and Pedro.
That was great. That was good. You're thinking on your feet there. Now, none of your kids went into the restaurant business?
All of them have worked at Coogan's.
They've all worked at Coogan's.
As has Peter. All Peter's kids have worked at
No
Coogan's.
kidding.
And all Tess's kids have worked at Coogan's.
Do they have a meeting and say, this is how we're going to take the place from our dads?
None of them have long-term interest in it.
No.
Uh-huh. It's a lot of work, man. It's a tough business. You know what? Because when you close the doors down, close at night, and you're a bar, so you're doing 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
But every night you do that? No, right?
They can stay open till 4 o'clock every night. I would say usually they can wrap things up around 3:30.
You ever
But
wanna
by the
hit
time
some-
they get out of there, it's 4 o'clock.
When there's the last 2 people there, you ever want to grab a bat and just hit them in the head with it? Get the fuck out.
No, because at that time of night, you can't ask people to go to 2 places. So if they come in at 1 o'clock at night and they want to have a conversation and talk and it's lingering on, you can't say, "Oh, listen, you're the only 2 people in the place. Let's go," because you can't ask them to go to another place at that time. You got to let them have their thing.
So
But when it closes, right?
Yeah, 4. But he's coming in at probably 4 in the morning to do the day shift, right?
Who, me?
Yeah.
No.
Well, you do the deliveries, right? Don't they come super early in the morning?
I check the invoices and they don't come super early. They usually come between 9 and noontime.
Oh, okay. So you're not coming that early. Being at you're what, 70 years old now?
Yes, just turned 70.
Being at this age and you look back
No,
upon
as
your
a matter
life,
of fact, I'm like 70 and a half now.
70 and a half. Look, being 70 years old, looking back upon your life, are you happy with where you wound up?
Totally happy with it. Totally happy
You
with
wouldn't do it any other way.
it. I wouldn't take a chance of changing anything. There's many things you think you might change, but that may also change something else along the way. So
Sure.
I wouldn't
me
rock
ask you
the
a
boat.
question.
I'm very happy.
What time do you open in the morning?
11 o'clock.
11 o'clock. So if I come in there at 11 o'clock and I go right to the bar and I order a drink, do you think I'm weird?
No.
You don't think it's a little bit too early to drink?
No, because
All right,
we are used to people who have all sorts of crazy
Hours, yeah.
hours, you know.
Mm-hmm. I just need to know
You
that.
serve breakfast?
Only on Saturday and Sunday.
Oh, nothing to do.
You got the brunch thing?
Yes, we open at 11. So I don't know if you
Are
call that.
there? You got any major events that you want to plug that are happening there?
I do. So I told you that Aquafina's show, Nora from Queens, is starting, I believe, Tuesday night. And one of the, I don't know which episode
I'm
it is. but
excited
one
to
of the-
see that. Yeah, that sounds cool.
Also on January 30th, this plays into the police thing. January 30th, the episode of SUV,
That's for you.
SVU,
Special Victims Unit,
Law and Order SVU, was filmed in Coogan's, and I think it has a pretty prominent part in it. And it has a good plot because it's the retirement dinner of a policeman. So all the major characters came. Ice-T
great.
was there, Mariska
Oh, cool.
Hargitay was
That's
there.
a great episode.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if you know the show The Wire, but they
Love
did,
The Wire, and that actor was just in the guy who plays Omar.
They did. He's great.
Yeah.
They did a show about McNulty retiring and a bunch of.
Loved it.
I had tears running down watching.
Loved it.
You know, the bagpipes and it was. They were all telling stories, and it was so real. I was like, wow, that was amazing. And the writers and the guy who.
Nobody did anything like that for me when I retired. Nobody even cared.
he's
They're like,
leaving.
I told
He's
somebody
leaving.
I'm retiring tomorrow. They're like, dude, you stopped working here like 20 years ago. I thought you retired 10 years ago.
No, but that's what Coogan's like a lot. When people were leaving or retiring, they may just bring 20 guys
Oh,
out for
that's
drinks,
the place.
right?
Well, no, that's the place to do it. I mean, if you're gonna have a retirement party, you should have it at Coogan's. I mean, obviously there's good bars all around the city, and depending on where you worked, your command. But if you're Manhattan North, I mean, that's the place.
That's the place, yeah. I
You
can't
know?
believe people from Brooklyn are like, what's Coogan's? What? You know,
We
what's
have,
Coogan's?
at least on one occasion stands out, but I think we did it at least twice, closed down the whole restaurant for a retirement.
Wow, that's a big. That's a big
that's
thing.
Maybe
great.
300 people.
That's excellent.
We wanted to actually go there and do maybe film this on remote, and then we thought a better idea is to actually record this here and then go out there and
Or B-roll, as they call
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
do a B-roll and check out that burger of yours and
Excellent.
maybe sample a little bit of try that Guinness thing that you
perfect
have.
pint.
2 minutes.
But you don't drink anymore, at least since last night.
A little bit. It'll be for the show. I mean, I can't.
You do anything for the show.
Yeah, honey, it's part of my business. I can't. That's the one thing about it's tough. It's gonna be tough, but listen, I'm gonna do it until I go to Jamaica in March. So my whole thing is if I can go without a drink until March. Well, I think it's 20 years. Who's
You sound exhausted even thinking about it.
1 minute at a time. Well, thank God we can still do drugs. I didn't say I wasn't going to do drugs. I'm just kidding. I don't do drugs.
It's a cop show.
But it's gonna be tough. I won't smoke as many cigarettes either, because the only time I smoke is if I'm having a drink. Yeah. And
Well, then that's the time to give it up.
You don't smoke, right, then?
No.
I did for many, many years, and I gave it up about 35 years ago.
Wow.
But the night that was it a special night to remember the reason why you gave up 35 years ago?
Sure it is, but it won't be told on film.
So you quit smoking and drinking the same night?
No, after I got sober, about 6 months later, my next self-improvement project was the cigarette.
And then you get fat because you eat more, right?
Exactly.
You quit smoking, and you got to eat, replace it with
But
something.
in answer to your other question, right where I am now, perfect.
Yeah.
So for our audience, one more time, if you're visiting New York City and you're from out of town and you want to visit the landmark of Coogan's, it's on 169th Street in Broadway, right across the street from Presbyterian Hospital. And if you go at nighttime, there's a good chance that you could find a handsome young police officer. If you're looking to get married.
You're looking to marry a cop.
If you need health insurance bad, and you if you're somewhere in the neighborhood of a C cup, maybe a D, double D, you'll have no problem meeting the husband. But a lot of people going on this 90-day fiance show. Screw that, man. Just come right to Coogan's.
Go right to Coogan's.
There's a future cop. There's a future cop waiting for you right there, right now.
You know, it's amazing when you talk about how life comes full circle. It's funny. I met you in the late 70s, early 80s, and then years later, I heard you were working at Pete's Tavern, where I used to tend bar, and my old roommate John Reynolds was great friends with you. Sure. And then I run into you at Coogan's in the 80s and all the 90s, actually, in 2000s. Sure. It's just, that's life, right? Uh-huh. It's unbelievable. You know?
Yeah, I mean, talk about being a local celebrity, man. You're like the king up there, too. I mean,
and one of the detectives from the 33rd Precinct, I knew when he was a bouncer at Trudy Heller's down in the village, even before he went on the police force.
Well, we had a really nice episode, I think. And we definitely...
2 episodes.
Yeah. Well, I'm talking about this one in particular. I enjoyed them both. I think this was a great thing for our show. It just goes to show you how... There's so many different things happening here in New York City, and yet it's still a simple town in a way. You know,
small town.
Yeah, if you're up there, in Washington Heights, or if you're in Inwood, or if you're in Harlem, a Manhattan North cop, a nurse, a doctor, a firefighter. I'm sure you get a lot of firefighters up there too, right?
Yes, we do. Yeah.
Corrections too. They come in there, don't they?
Well, like I say, they're not as recognizable as it was in the 80s.
Yeah,
you could pick these guys out pretty easily, and now it's all a blend, and it represents the mosaic of the city.
Sure.
Yeah. Man, I'm in the academy all the time.
And women. We have
female cops.
Yeah.
That's a big difference. I'm sure you saw that too. A big transition there. All right. So, any parting words?
Well, I'm just thinking that these 2 episodes with Dave were so good. I don't know how Peter Walsh is going to do a better.
He'll sing.
That's right. He's a good singer. He can sing us a few Irish songs, right?
Yeah, I love those songs.
Oh, he'll have to sing.
You get a lot of I guess since you have so many parties up there, right? You got you must have the bagpipe. They play the bagpipes in there, right?
The first Monday of March, the Ancient Order of Hibernians always does a big event at Coogan's, and there's almost always a piper.
No kidding.
One of the years, this is going back probably before your times, the head of the pipe band was Finbar Devine.
Yes, I remember. Yes. Famous Irish guy. Yes. He had that big stick, right?
He used to come. Oh, he was a monster of a guy. Yeah. And he used to come and pipe the guest.
You guys keep the shillelagh behind the bar in case someone gets disorderly.
It's a Louisville Slugger, but
old school. Man.
I thought you had the Dublin shillelagh, just for the history.
Damn, man! I'm so. I would love to have one of those Guinnesses right now. Normally, I wouldn't think about drinking until the night, but now that I quit, I could think about it. All right, so I wanted to, on behalf of Police Off the Cuff, man, you are now in the Hall of Fame, Dave.
Well, thank you very much. It was
Join
an
the
absolute
Police Off the
pleasure.
Cuff Hall of Fame.
Absolute
Absolutely.
pleasure.
You are now
Thank
in
you.
the Police Off the Cuff Hall of Fame, which is it's a big deal. There are a lot of cops there. They want to get in here, and now we have the proprietor, man, the guy who helps us all out, especially in time of need. It gives back to the community. When's the run
No
coming up?
scholarships.
Nothing OTA.
One more thing before we go. Do you have teams? Do you guys sponsor teams and stuff?
No.
No, you don't do that.
Well, we sponsored the Michael Busick Little League.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I mean, you go and you go back to the winners' bar, and
No, I'm talking about the like you talked about the Little League, Little
League,
League
yes,
and stuff
yes,
like that. Yeah,
Little
yeah.
League we do, yeah.
That's cool. So you're giving a lot back to the community
I
up there,
think
man.
we have that. That's another whole story. Our relationship with the Michael Busick Little League. Michael Busick being the police officer killed in 1988. But I think we are the longest continuous sponsor of a team in the Michael Busick Little League, and that's through Johnny Moynihan.
That's fantastic, yeah.
Oh, that's definitely great. That's definitely.
It's funny how we all know the same people, right? It's pretty good. Yeah, I like that.
There was something I wanted to leave with, man. I always forget, but I guess I'm gonna forget again. I had a good time though, man. And if you're up, if you're visiting New York City, like I said, go visit Coogan's. It's a landmark. It's our cheers, man. And
They do have a page they're on Facebook, so you definitely
Coogan's NYC.
Find it on Facebook.
You got to post this on the Coogan's website because a lot of people will watch it. This is on YouTube, and we put it out on Facebook.
I am
It's also
technologically challenged, but I will speak to those who.
I want to come up there, man. I want to come up there and do that B-roll.
We got to do that.
Excellent.
say
Excellent.
hi.
We'll look forward to it.
All right, thanks, Dave.
Thank you.
Here we are. We're saying the end of
He
tour.
was the politically incorrect one, not me.
We're saying end of tour over now from Police Off the Cuff. Have a great week.